There's no denying that our environment is constantly changing. With the increasing number of natural disasters and irregular weather patterns all around the world, it seems that Mother Nature is trying to tell us something. Humans have a devastating effect to the environment, and this will only continue to worsen without any real action taken to protect the planet. I've done a great amount of research on this topic in order to propose a policy for solution because the possible consequences are immense. Environmental degradation, which is the disintegration of the earth through depletion of resources, biodiversity loss, pollution, etc., is a global issue that is drastically changing the world we know today. In order to understand what is causing environmental degradation, we must look at environmental history. Environmental history is the interaction between humans and the natural world over time. The environment has a huge influence on the way humans live, just as humans have a huge influence on the environment. Unfortunately, the impact humans impose on nature is detrimental. For example, the gold rush is one of the most environmentally destructive events that reshaped the landscape of California. The massive influx of settlers combined with the utter destruction of hydraulic mining, which was a technological advancement at the time, took a toll on the environment. The blasting away of entire hillsides caused debris flow and downstream flooding. In terms of the ecosystem, the effects of deforestation was enormous. In fact, only 3% of the original redwood tree population still exists today. California also faced drastic wildlife reduction or extinction of animals like the grizzly bear, bighorn sheep, otters, and whales. There has always been tension between the environment and the economy and between nature and humanity, particularly illustrated in 19th century California. Environmental history is deeply interdisciplinary. There are links between the environment in relation to economics and politics. Capital production has an enormous influence on how environmental history unfolds. Capital demands constant growth, which means constant consumption. Everything we consume comes from the natural resources. The environment has a huge impact on what humans can and cannot produce. Mother Nature is constantly pushing back our efforts with natural disasters like droughts, irregular weather patterns. We can learn a thing or two from the practices of Native Americans managing and sustaining the natural resources of the environment. At the current rate we continue to extract and exploit the environment instead of preserving it, our natural resources will ultimately and inevitably run out. There's an inherent problem with a capital system that demands infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. There are many examples of environmental crises the planet faces today. Freshwater shortage, biodiversity loss, air water pollution, ozone depletion, and ocean acidification, just to name a few. To further elaborate on the ramifications of these environmental issues, there's an immense consequence on the economy, human health, and the planet as a whole. The ozone layer is responsible for protecting the Earth from ultraviolet rays. As the ozone layer continues to thin, harmful radiation will be emitted back to the Earth. Areas exposed to toxic air pollutants make us more susceptible to respiratory issues like pneumonia, asthma, and death in extreme cases. The same goes for improper waste disposal. Littering in landfills pose great health risks and cause harm to the wildlife. Each species plays an important role in our ecosystem, and if these species are being destroyed, this loss of biodiversity will debilitate the environment from being able to naturally restore and sustain itself. These are just some of the many examples that highlight the possible dangers of environmental degradation. Climate change is one of the many major effects of environmental degradation. The temperature of the Earth's surface in 2016 was the hottest in the history of the planet. Estimates show that the global mean surface temperature in 2016 was 1.1 Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. Furthermore, the last 4 years have been ranked as the hottest years on Earth ever. These trends in global temperatures in the last decade align with the scientific consensus that global warming exists, yet our politicians choose to ignore this enormous matter. The increase of CO2 in the atmosphere translates to why our planet is reaching record-breaking heat each year. The fossil fuel burning from coal, petroleum, and natural gas is a major cause for the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere. While at the same time, the consumption rate of these fossil fuels has tripled in the last half-century. A big reason of the CO2 emissions is overpopulation. Global population has increased by a factor of 4 in the last 100 years and is now more than 7.4 billion in the current day. This rapid growth is related to growing loss of natural resources resulting in the degradation of the environment. With all this overwhelming evidence I've just explained, here's my proposal for a solution. My policy includes the transition to electric cars being a main focus. This can reduce our carbon footprint, therefore lowering the rate of global warming. Another focus will be to provide more government spending on proper waste disposal to limit the effects of pollution. This policy will also ban further deforestation in areas with endangered species to help restore the ecosystem. I'm calling on global health leaders environmental protection agencies, and international policymakers to make these changes now. This is an enormous issue that affects all life on the planet. Obviously, there's no one fixed solution for the effects of environmental degradation, but I feel like my proposal tackles some main issues. These changes are necessary for the better of our environment and our world as a whole. In conclusion, it becomes clear that environmental degradation is a serious global issue that affects many vital aspects of the world we live in. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence, yet not enough emphasis towards environmental protection efforts. In the United States' recent history, California has become a trendsetter in environmental policy for the rest of the country. Here at San Jose State, we can be the spark that ignites the change in our lives, our environment, and our world. I hope the global environment agencies consider my policy, because without any real action being taken soon in the near future to prevent and resolve the negative effects of environmental degradation, otherwise the environment and the world as we know it may never be the same.